giving it any DAP or any kind of food other than what was in there. And so things were taking a while to finish. But it was absolutely fabulous, and I entered it in my very first Mazer Cup in 2013, and it took a bronze medal in the sweet experimental category because it was very heavily oaked. And that was before we had our new BGCP categories that allowed for copious amounts of oak in a category.
Yeah, that just changed just a few years ago.
I know, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love it because I was so irritated that I couldn't enter it as a Pyment. I had to put it in the experimental category just because I put oak in it.
Yeah, that always threw me off,
I'm very happy about that little change.
Yeah, because they were doing that same thing with traditionals. Oak has to go in experimental, and we were all like, but why?
Why is oak an experimental thing?
There is no good reason for that.
No, there was no good reason for it. Yeah.
Oak should be a required thing.
Well,
it should be experimental to not use oak.
Well, I wouldn't oak everything. But
I know for you, Ryan, it's experimental to not use it.
That's right.
He's the man of oak, man.
Well, and David, is it not true, David, that you didn't really have that good of a handle on using oak and didn't quite use it like you do now until we had the oak class that I taught at our meeting a while back where we made all the oak teas and all, right? So that opened up your eyes.
That was that was a big game changer because I was a medium heavy toasted French oak guy, which if you're just getting started on oak, that's a perfect oak to go with because it works well with everything. It's like the most used oak out there, so everybody's familiar with the characteristics of it. So you're not throwing a curveball at somebody that hasn't tried it before. So it's a really good oak to start with. But then once you start playing around with your different toast levels and your American oak and your Hungarian oak and now they're even starting to put different wood species out there. I've got a honeycomb that's made of maple. Like, well, that should be interesting. But absolutely, Ryan, that's making a series of teas and trying all of the different teas and blending them together and whatnot was definitely a game changer in my book as far as being able to create complexity through oak, along with all of the other cool things that you can do. Creating the perception of dryness and adding vanilla flavors to it and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And so if we have new listeners that have just recently joined the podcast, we actually spent an entire evening one night about maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, and the topic of the evening was oaking your meads. And so I just want to encourage you all, if you want to get a handle on using oak in your meads, that you can drop back and pick that up on our archived podcast.
Plus Ryan's paper on oak is also attached to the episode page for that podcast.
Yes, I was going to say that oak paper is kind of my reference book on oak now. Yeah. So thanks, Ryan. I appreciate that.
No problem. Mm-hmm. So you now know well enough that you can, when you're building a mead of any category, you can put together from the very start which different oaks you want to pick and why. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I'm even starting to take it a step further than that and looking at what the different species can do when you put them in the primary versus in the secondary.
Right.
I would never not add oak in the secondary as well, because when you add it in the primary, I feel like you lose a lot of it. But when you back it up with some oak in the secondary, you end up just getting this tremendous depth to the oak flavor there. And I feel like it really incorporates into the mead a little bit better too. It feels like it belongs there rather than it was added.
I know what you're saying for sure.
David.
So always experiment.
When you're doing with your various different grape types and that, do you have like an idea of what honey honey varietal you want to use? Do you stick with just a straight up clover or wildflower, or what have you been doing with that?
I pretty much stick with clover or wildflower, especially on the red grapes, just because the flavor is so big and so bold. You would really need a very strong honey to pair up well with that and not get lost in it. And those single source varietal honeys are so expensive that I wouldn't put that in a Pyment that you're throwing grapes into. Spend the money on the grapes and get some clover or some good wildflower honey. I mean, you still want to use good quality honey for it. That's true of any mead that you want to make. But as far as the variety goes, I pretty much just stick with a wildflower honey, unless I'm trying to do a traditional.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of figured that was the case, but I thought I'd ask and see if you had any things that you like to do. So I'm sure other people are thinking of that.
I've got thoughts on that. Like, I think blackberry blossom would be incredible to do with a Pyment.
Yes.
Because it has just a really intense flavor to it that is very distinct, and also I feel like it pairs really well with the grape as well. So that would be one that would probably be worth trying, and potentially a raspberry blossom as well.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found with raspberry blossom is it can bring some tannins from somewhere, I guess the pollen. But I've done raspberry blossom traditionals, and they have this really interesting tannic structure to them that I definitely was not expecting. So that could be another good one to use.
Okay. Yeah.
Have we gotten questions from our audience that people wanted to ask David specifics?
I've got a couple that Steve Kirby at Stone Dog sent in earlier that we can bring in here. He says, how do you extract the maximum fruit flavor while keeping the tannins at a reasonable level? I normally put my fruit in secondary, but find it hard to balance the fruit and tannin ratio.
Honestly, with my Pyments, I put all of the fruit in the primary. And I think with using a fructophilic yeast, you're maximizing your grape flavor there. And basically the tannins, in my Pyments, the tannins are coming from oak. They're not really present from much else. Occasionally, when you get grape skins in with a wine kit, you'll get some tannins in there with it too, but not really. I've never experienced in a Pyment the tannins being so much that you have to do something to try and compensate for it.
Okay.
I'm guessing because he asked that question, I'm betting he probably has the opportunity to pick up his grapes at crush and has both the grape juice and his skins, and that's why he's having a problem finding the balance with the.
Yeah, he's in Australia, so grapes everywhere.
Right. Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
His other question then was...
He's doing it the hard way.
I don't know. I kind of liked going and picking my own grapes. There's a certain satisfaction to it, and and it was fun sitting and talking to the old guy who owned the place while he, while he squished the grapes, and I learned a few things, because he sat there and he told me stories, so it was pretty cool. I like that a lot.
I have thought about doing one that I crush the grapes with my bare feet, and making judges taste that.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if you did that and took a gold? Wouldn't it be great if you did that and took a gold, and then when you go up to collect your medal, go, and I washed my feet really good in star sand before I stepped all over those grapes.
I was just going to ask, do you use star sand or sulfites on your feet?
Right. Yeah. Spray them down with some sulfite solution. Sulfites and citric acid. That'll do it.
You know, just step into a bucket of Star San and then just step straight into the wine stomping barrel, you know, and then you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what they do in Italy when they're stomping them like
of
feet,
course, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Ken Forey is asking, how would mesquite honey do with a red grape Pyment? That's actually a really good question.
You know, I think mesquite honey could be pretty good with that.
It's peppery.
It's got some kind of nice, some peppery. I would probably look to go towards a grape that has some black pepper kind of characteristics to it, and try to play off of that. So, you know, maybe like an Old Vine Zin, which is one that I've been wanting to do for a while. Which, by the way, you will not find a cheap wine kit for, which is why I haven't done one yet. They're like $200 for an Old Vine Zin kit.
Jeez. That was another reason for me going to pick my own grapes. It was a whole lot cheaper to sweat out in the sun and get bug bites than it was to buy. I can't find Chamberson in a wine kit. I find everything but. I've looked. I have not, unless there's one that I just could not track down. I haven't found one anywhere. So I finally gave in and picked my own damn grapes. But yeah, and I missed the crush this year, so I'm not going to get any this year.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked with muscadine juice or grapes?
No, I haven't.
It's a really interesting grape.
It is on my list. Yeah. I haven't played with it, but it's on my to-do list. So, I've just got so many things that are kind of in the queue right now that I don't know. It'll be a while to get through them all.
Yeah, I think we all have that list. AJ's is like an entire notebook long.
Yeah.
I'm doing the clean out the cupboard meads this winter. I've got fruity teas and I've got some honey stashed and I've got a bunch of other stuff, and I'm just gonna line it all up and go, let me see, what can I make out of this?
Right. Yeah, I've basically spent the summer collecting fruit and various ingredients and whatnot for a big fall mead making batch. So I've got a bunch of Palisade peaches, of course, because I got to do some more of that Palisade peach mead.
Oh yeah.
And
I love
got
peach
some rhubarb and some blackberries.
I'm hitting the farmer's market either this weekend or next weekend. It's time to get apple cider.
Yeah, I haven't been able to find any here in Colorado. What? I think the apples got hit really hard this spring, and I haven't found anything that's really good, anything that's really impressed me enough to make a mead with.
Yeah. I've never been good at the whole blending apple juice things. I go and find a cider that I like the taste of, and then I just go with that, you know.
Right. I may end up going that route with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's just too much work the other way. I'm a lazy mead maker, you know. I find a cider that's like, oh, that tastes good. Yeah, give me 5 gallons of that. You know, and away we go.
Yep. Absolutely.
Damn, this Pyment is so good. I've got to find me some more Chamberson juice.
Yeah, it is definitely one of my favorite mead styles, and I've done really well with them. So I think actually 5 out of my 10 Mazer cups have been with Pyments.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
But I've been branching out, so guys, watch out.
Uh-oh. Next thing you know, he'll be making like a melomel.
No, not a melomel.
Not a melomel. Right. Everybody makes melomels.
Right? I'm getting yelled at for entering my stone fruit everywhere.
Yeah, I like stone fruit. I'm a big fan of cherries and peaches. Are 2 of my favorites because I come from cherry country in Michigan, and I fell in love with peaches in Georgia. So,
right?
You know.
we've had 2 years in a row now of absolutely epic